In a previous video, I shared an alarming statistic. There are an estimated 70 million stray companion animals in the United States. And with roughly 6.5 animals ending up at shelters each year, that leaves over 60 million without homes. That is a big number. You might be asking yourself, where are they all? What happens to them? And the most important question, what can we do to help? In this 5th episode of our Changemaker Cafe Animal Rescue series, we'll take a look at what happens to the millions of companion animals, mostly cats and dogs, who don't make it into the shelters or rescue programs, what animal rescue experts are doing on the ground to try to help them, and the roles that we can play to improve the lives of our furry friends. If you're catching up, you can watch the rest of the videos in this series on our channel and, of course, check out our other topics too. Looking for more resources? Download the series action guide for tips on how to tackle these issues in your community, whether you are aiming to start a nonprofit or socially conscious business, serve as a volunteer or board member at a nonprofit, raise funds or awareness, and more, all at changemakercafe.com. Thank you once again to Click and Pledge for sponsoring this series. Ready? You know it's coming. Let's get curious. Warning. Watching Changemaker Cafe may lead to side effects such as caring a lot, an insatiable desire to help others, growing your skills to change the world, or becoming a leader in your community. For best results, use an open mind and share with all your friends. There's somebody I want you to meet. This is Howl. She's slightly feral or undomesticated, according to her caretakers at Indie Neighborhood Cats in Indianapolis. Howl was brought in from the outside world because she wasn't thriving in a feral outdoor cat colony. Cat colonies are just one part of the bigger picture for homeless companion animals. With millions of animals living outside of human homes, animal rescue leaders are fighting an uphill battle against increasing pet overpopulation, the main contributor, they say, to ongoing challenges for these animals. In our 2nd episode of this series, we explored the challenges and causes of pet overpopulation. But to recap, for any species, overpopulation occurs when the number of beings in a given area exceeds the environment's capacity to support them. In other words, there are not enough homes or safe environments to go around for these animals. Even as many of these animals, domesticated over thousands of years, now depend on some kind of human support to survive. So where are all these animals living when they aren't among the estimated 10% who make it into a shelter or rescue program? Often in plain sight. Homeless animals are likely to be found in urban or suburban areas, perhaps near restaurants or dumpsters, or even schools or parks where they might find food left by humans, or in rural areas around farms, abandoned buildings, or wooded areas. In warmer areas, for example, in communities of humans who are also experiencing homelessness, who, as we discussed in episode 4, often rely on each other for companionship and survival. Or maybe in communities of humans who may attempt to care for a community dog or cat collectively. Or even in what's known as managed colonies, communities of animals, often cats, who live outdoors but are monitored and cared for by nearby humans. Stay tuned because we'll talk about managed colonies later in this video. Now, one thing that makes it particularly hard for animal rescue efforts to account for and monitor homeless animals is the public's understanding of the difference between stray and feral. So what is the difference, you might ask? It turns out the definition depends on the amount of human contact an animal has had, and animals can exist on either end of a continuum of stray or feral, or somewhere in between. According to Alley Cat Allies, a nonprofit aimed at protecting and improving lives for all cats, stray animals were once socialized to people, might allow people to touch or engage with them, can become feral if positive contact with humans dwindles, and can also become a pet again with the right support. On the other hand, feral animals are no longer accustomed to human contact or have never had physical contact with humans. They're likely afraid of and unlikely to engage with humans. They can be socialized and adopted if found as very young animals. Now, homeless dogs and cats face a number of challenges living outside of human homes, especially if they were once socialized and unaccustomed to surviving on their own. In the winter, they may freeze or get heat exhaustion. In the summer, they run the risk of getting hit by vehicles or being attacked by other animals or people. They might face illness, toxic substances in the ground, or parasites because they don't have access to medical treatment. And the fear and the stress of just surviving day to day can really wear them thin. So how do we help? Let's take a look at some of the strategies current animal rescue efforts are using on the ground to improve the lives of homeless animals. As we're talking through these, think about what solutions sound like something you could help with in your region. Some of the most prominent efforts fall into one of three categories. The first is population control, to try to get a handle on increasing numbers so that each animal can have greater chances of finding a home or receiving care. Second category is rescue and rehabilitation, where the effort is to help as many animals as possible find a home. And the third is advocating for policy changes to try to make the treatment of animals living on or off the streets more humane. Let's examine each one. Okay, so for the first one, animal rescue leaders widely agree that spaying and neutering is the most critical thing that humans can do to help homeless animals. Animal rescue groups, advocates, and veterinarians champion spay and neuter procedures for pet owners, and many groups do their best to provide financial assistance for these procedures, since they can cost up to $500 if completed at a vet's office. But what about homeless animals? Trap, neuter, vaccinate, return, or sometimes trap, neuter, return, or TNR for short, is a widely used strategy among animal rescue groups to help reduce and control unchecked animal populations. Now, not all TNR programs are exactly the same in each city, but in general, here's how it works. Rescue efforts humanely trap feral animals, in general cats, because of how quickly they breed, sterilize them, vaccinate them to prevent rabies and the spread of other diseases, and then return them to their original location. This prevents future litters, ensuring that each animal alive today can have a greater chance of getting food, care, or homes. As one community member working with indie neighborhood cats put it,
one female has 8 a year, and then they have 2 females or 3, and then they have 3. You know what I mean? It just keeps going from there. The multiplication's crazy. Lots of cats.
There are some people concerned that TNR may not be enough to ensure cats or other animals can live healthy, happy lives, or that programs are not big or widespread enough to impact the animal population for the long term. As a result, TNR advocates make a case for more funding and investment in these programs. One study published by the University of Florida in 2019 noted that when sterilization efforts reach 75% of the colony, overall numbers will decrease over time, while preventable cat deaths can be reduced more than 30-fold. It's also why TNR advocates say that monitoring animals in feral colonies and considering ways to provide continued cat care after a procedure is an important step. This might happen in the form of microchipping and/or ear tipping. If you've ever seen a cat outside with his ear clipped, that could mean a group conducting a TNR program marked him so that they could identify him and monitor his well-being in the future. TNR efforts also play another important, unexpected role in animal rescue, identifying if an animal isn't feral or suited to life outdoors, and then making sure that that animal gets the proper housing or care. I spoke to Dawn Benefiel, Executive Director of Indie Neighborhood Cats, who explained how it's all part of the wider array of animal rescue and rehabilitation efforts.
You know, trap, neuter, return is meant to be a blanket statement, regardless of how social the cat is, how friendly, like Gilligan here. If they're out on the street, the mission is get them fixed, get them vaccinated, get them back to their neighborhoods. But ethically, we have to identify the cats that don't belong out there, the ones that aren't thriving, the ones that, you know, look like they are not getting together with the other packs of cats in that neighborhood, and they do stand out. And thank goodness we have trap, neuter, return, because we have people in the community that are out there feeding the cats that have been fixed. They're out at those colony stations. They find the newcomers, and they know when one doesn't belong. They're different. Like, this is a very healthy looking cat. Cats that are outdoors and thriving look just like this. But if they're not thriving, they're not cleaning themselves, they're not getting fed, they don't know how to live outside. And so it's our job ethically, I believe, even though our mission is trap, neuter, return, to make the best decision for that cat, regardless of, you know, what our mission is. And so we find this year especially, hundreds of cats that did not belong outside. And there was a cat named Snowball. He was all white. The shelter called him white and gray. He was so dirty. He had broken teeth that were with root pulp exposure and infection. He was unaltered. He had these ears that had just been chewed up and from fighting and, you know, years out on the streets. And he is the sweetest cat you would ever see. And if we had found him in the field and simply trap, neutered, and returned him, he would not have thrived outside. But his coat is coming back. You know, as soon as you get a cat that was inside all their lives back inside, they become that cat again, because cats live in the moment. And there are just these wonderful stories of, like, Gilligan and River and some other cats that become working cats. They're not feral. They're very happy and healthy, but they weren't doing well outside. And so I think it's important to remember that's why what we do is so important.
In addition to ongoing animal rescue efforts to find homes for companion animals in shelters or foster care, another important strategy is making sure that everything possible is done to help pets who are merely lost find their way back home. In one study by Ohio State University, it was found that nearly 50% of dogs had some form of identification, like a tag or microchip, and less than 20% of cats did. This means that shelters who find lost pets have no way of finding their owners unless those owners call the shelters first. Different municipalities, states, and countries all have varying laws protecting animals from cruelty or harm. In one example, animal rights activists in Turkey have railed against the president's new initiative to round up and euthanize dogs living on the streets, rather than other more humane approaches to managing what some view as a public nuisance. As we discussed in our last video, pet abandonment is already considered illegal in most U.S. states, but penalties for the crime may vary. But to improve the lives of animals without homes, some animal rescue experts advocate for policies such as widespread prohibition of backyard breeding, the sale of pets in retail shops, or even charging a fine to pet owners who don't get their pets spayed or neutered. Make sure you've subscribed to the channel, because we're going to go deeper into how policy and laws on the books can improve lives for companion animals in one of our upcoming videos. The struggles faced by homeless pets are many. Let's think together about how we can make their lives better. It's time for our Changemaker Challenge. Brainstorm a few ways that you might be able to use your unique skills to help homeless animals, whether it's raising awareness about spaying and neutering or microchipping, advocating for humane policies in your region, or other ways to make an impact, and share all of those thoughts in the comments below. In our next video in our animal rescue series, we'll talk about an unseen epidemic impacting animal rescue work in some big ways: the burnout of animal rescue and care workers. and we'll talk about what we can do to help. There's just one last thing to share with you before we go, and that is a sincere thank you to our sponsor making this series possible, Click and Pledge. Click and Pledge is a comprehensive fundraising platform for nonprofits ready to raise money and grow their impacts. Their robust fundraising features include donation forms, in-person fundraising features, text to give, peer-to-peer fundraising so that your own supporters can go out and raise money in teams from their friends and networks, video fundraising with donation links embedded directly in your videos, donor outreach tools that improve donor retention, a complete Salesforce integration, and more. Some platforms charge more based on your organization's size or the size of your donor base. Not Click and Pledge. The pricing is going to stay the same even as your donor list increases. And there are no contracts, and all of their solutions are included at no extra cost. Learn more about Click and Pledge's fundraising solutions and get your first month free using the links below this video. You can always get in contact with their team if you have questions or schedule a demo, or sign up to give it a try right now. You can find the links for all of those options below. I'll see you in the next episode of Changemaker Cafe.